Well, I'm so excited to be sharing our story with all of you today. Audrey, I'm really excited about the work that you're doing. Michael and I, my husband, we can't thank you all enough for all the work that you do for kids like Corey. This is our family. So we actually live in Omaha, Nebraska. We've got two kids, so Corey and then big sister Olivia, who is really Corey's biggest cheerleader. So I wanted to include her. All right, so here's Corey. He is the happiest, most determined little boy. I still can't believe that he is going to be 2 years old in May. He loves to play outside with Olivia, swing the golf club, and then cheer on his favorite team, which is the Creighton Blue Jays, who is actually going to be playing in the Sweet 16 this weekend. So go Jays. Over the next several minutes, I'm going to give you a peek into my son's story, who is believed to be the youngest diagnosed SETBP1 kiddo at just 7 months old. So it all started at about 2 months. I'd see other moms post pictures of their babies who were born around the same time doing things, and I'd say, Corey is not rolling like that, or he's not lifting his head to look around, or he's not cooing like those other babies. This picture that I'm showing here is Corey at 3 months. You can see big sister Olivia is trying to motivate him with tummy time. And he couldn't even get his head up. And looking back now, it's really clear that he had a lot of trouble, but being in it every day, we just kind of thought, hey, he doesn't want to do tummy time. So we brought it up to our pediatrician, and he said, let's give him another month. So we went back at our 4-month checkup, and I remember him saying, this is like burned into my memory now, but he said, I am concerned about Corey. And he gave us 3 options. He said, we can wait until his 6-month appointment, give him a little bit more time. We could run blood work and do the microarray right now, or we could refer to a neuro. In pediatric neurology, waits in Omaha were anywhere from 6 months to a year out. We got incredibly lucky because there was a new group that was started at Boys Town Hospital here, and we got in saw someone within 2 weeks. He is 5 months old at this point. So a series of 5 tests were recommended. Blood work. So we started the blood work almost right away. She recommended a swallow study, a rapid MRI, an echo of his heart, and then immediate physical therapy. So I'll never forget the day that we went in to speak with the neurologist about the results. I had kind of figured that it took so long because they didn't find anything, but our lives were obviously flipped completely upside down when we were told that he had Shinsel-Gideon syndrome. And they also gave us a life expectancy. His lab report read, autosomal dominant mutations in SETBP1 have been associated with Shinsel-Gideon midface retraction syndrome. And nowhere in the report did it ever mention that a loss of function within this gene would result in a significantly different diagnosis, which is SETBP1 disorder. So we continued to do some of our own research. We stumbled upon the SETBP1 Society website and the Simon Searchlight pages, and that led us to additional resources on the SETBP1 gene. I'm a marketing major and my husband is in finance, so we had no business trying to dissect a lab report to better understand his diagnosis. And it actually took us 3 weeks to figure out that we were misdiagnosed. But that's when our fight began. We were out to prove to the world that Corey was different. And although he had this genetic mutation, he was going to conquer a lot of these challenges that we were reading about. We count our blessings every day about the misdiagnosis, but one thing that I want to make sure that you guys take away is that the loss of function in SETBP1 gene may not be life-threatening, but Corey does struggle each and every day. So over the next several months, there were a lot of unknowns. Again, we're so thankful for the society website and also to get connected to the other SETBP1 families. With Corey being the youngest, I knew I was going to have to lean on them heavily just from their past experiences to help guide our care plan for Corey. But what I quickly realized is that not every kid is the same. They all show similarities, but within varying degrees. So I want to talk a little bit about, in the last year and a half, we've seen 10 plus specialists Top two first were neurology and genetics. GI, pulmonology, and ENT are part of some feeding struggles that Corey has, which I'll walk into. And then PT, OT, and ST, we see those therapists anywhere from 3 to 4 times a week at this point right now. The main cause of Corey's challenges thus far has been hypotonia. I'm going to cover some of the main things that affect him daily. But one thing that you're going to notice is the amount of work that it takes him to do very simple tasks that other kids do with a lot of ease. So the first one is aspiration. To our knowledge, there's no other family that has had challenges with aspiration. And that's possibly because Corey was diagnosed so young. A lot of parents say that they actually never were recommended for a swallow study to begin with. We're a part of the aerodigestive clinic at the Children's Hospital here in Omaha. Again, the GI, the pulmonologist, and the ENT. He has failed 5 swallow studies to this day. And actually, they put him under anesthesia to complete a scope just to make sure everything looked right, and everything came back positive. So there's no anatomical issues. There's no real reason for the struggles with his swallowing. The only thing we can lean on is it's probably the hypotonia. Because of the aspiration, we were recommended for a G-tube, which we were pretty hesitant because Corey's been fairly healthy. They did a chest x-ray of his lungs, which showed typical. There's no fluid. He's been on his growth curve. He's never been considered failure to thrive, and he's making major progress in therapy. So after about 6 months of a discussion about this tube, we just recently received the blessing to hold off and allow Corey to tell us if he needs one, which would be, any challenges with growth or health, et cetera. So every liquid is thickened with something called Purific powder, and it's to the consistency of honey, which is the highest level that it goes. The next level is pudding. We mix this with some form of like sugar-free Gatorade or flavored water to encourage him to get his daily consumption. I remember before he turned 1, we were traveling in an airport pre-COVID, and I was carrying a bottle warmer because his milk had to be heated to 100 degrees in order to thicken properly. And he was a rock star. We're going to have a huge party when we can give him a sippy cup of water, just like other kids his age. Another main challenge is gross motor challenges. We've been involved with physical therapy, like I said, since he was about 5 months old. We do a mix of private and public support. He's considered to have pretty severe hypotonia, but what he has going for him is his persistence and his curiosity. So it's been a slow and steady race for us. I wanted to highlight some of his milestones here. At 12 months is when he first started rolling to his tummy. And just to give you an idea, typically that happens for babies at about 3 to 4 months. At 17 months, he started sitting unsupported. Typically, again, happens around the 6 to 9 month mark for babies. Recently, he started pulling to stand and also started cruising along the couch. So he's making like amazing progress. We have been really lucky to find a PT that loves Corey like, he is her own son. She's provided us with a ton of adaptive equipment, anything that he's really needed. The top right-hand picture is the tumble form chair, which really we use just to get him off of his back so he could see the world. We used it also kind of like a high chair to feed some solids early on. And his dad made that toy bar. The purpose of that is to get him to try and reach and play with toys. The left picture is called a Bella's Bumpa, and that is just so he could be on the same level with his friends while they were starting to crawl. Again, Corey was barely getting to his tummy at this point. They also used it for circle time at school, so being very inclusive with him. And then last but not least, the bath chair. So I always said if I had more time on my hands, I would develop a bath chair for kids with hypotonia. We tried 5 different chairs. You'll notice the strap around his belly to kind of keep him in place. We had to put towels underneath to really make sure that he was supported and give him some traction. But, we were consistently trying to scoot him up into the chair. And he used that bath chair for about 6 months. So I did include some videos, and I hope that you can hear the sound. This is at 19 months when he started to pull to stand.
On after it.
Good job, Corey. Can you stand? Here. Can you get it? Yay!
And you can obviously see how excited we get as a family. This other video is kind of cool. So RPT, like I said, is amazing. She worked with the local university engineering students to retrofit Power Wheels. It's part of one of her programs. And so they make these cars for kids with special needs because, you know, they're trying to live as normal of life as they can, even though they have limited mobility being so young. So you'll see that he's got a 5-part harness. The gas is actually in the steering wheel. So there's a red button there with a bar. All he has to do is push the bar and it will move the car forward. And he really loves this.
Okay, go.
Go. Oh, oh.
Good, can you go back? Okay, push the button. Okay.
Good job.
And he's pretty proud of himself too. I mentioned how hard Corey works for simple tasks. And so I wanted to give you guys a few examples. We moved Corey into a new room at his daycare to keep him with kids his age, which has been extremely beneficial. Corey cognitively is at the level of a 2-year-old. But my heart sank when the teacher called to ask if we had a chair that he could use so he could sit at the table with the rest of his friends. You know, he was moving from a baby room where everybody was in a high chair. And this was really like the first sting because we're becoming, you know, more and more noticeable of the accommodations that he needs. You know, while other kids have those cute little wooden chairs, Corey had to sit in a padded chair. It was basically a high chair that was on the floor with the harness because the wooden chair wasn't supportive enough. And he fatigues very easily with a simple task like eating. But I'm excited to show you this video. This is just literally within the last month where he's able to get in and out of his adaptive wooden chair.
Good job, Corey.
I mentioned the fatigue. So this is part of our story. He works really hard on very simple tasks compared to his peers. And when he first moved rooms, we had trouble even getting him to stay awake until the 10 a.m. snack time, just because he was moving all over the place. So you might see him walking in a gait trainer or sitting up independently, but this is actually our reality once he hits his limit. The next thing I want to chat through is our OT-ST combined approach. So at about 12 months, we started seeing an OT-ST duo, specifically for feeding therapy. And their strategy is really to address the whole child's foundational development. We're working on things like crawling in a proper way that engages his core, sensory tactile play, maintaining proper positioning for safe eating. And in a few short meetings, we realized that Corey had some sensory processing differences that the team started to address. So to give you an example, things like hot and cold, textures like grass or concrete, or even those craft pom-poms, they started implementing tactics like in and out play of containers with ice cubes. So one thing that Corey has going for him is he's really curious. And even though some of these things might slow him down, he always goes back for more. And that's really like helped his therapy and his progress. He's had major progress with this model. So as a researcher, I think it'd be valuable information for you to take with you that we're noticing some motor pattern and verbal improvements in parallel. And typically kids will have some sort of motor progress, but then the verbal progress will follow. And this just kind of tells us that Corey's making up skills that were delayed. And our therapists really believe that since we intervened so early, that his motor patterns were not yet established. So they were able to go in and train in the correct order for Corey's long-term success. As an example, they stress the importance of Corey's ability to crawl on all fours before he takes any steps. And some kids breeze past the crawling stage, but for a kid like Corey, that could cause, underdeveloped motor skills or challenges with eye-hand coordination, or even some learning abilities down the road. I've included a video here of his therapy, and it might play kind of loud because he's beating a drum here, but I mentioned he has low tone throughout his entire body, hence the aspiration. But this video might seem pretty simple if you didn't understand the background. What you don't see is that Corey is actually working very hard physically and mentally. So the goal is to create a process within his brain that has a specific sequence. So you're going to see him balancing on a shaker plate, moving both arms up and down while holding the drumsticks and beating down. And then they also wanted to see some form of language, all of that happening at the same time. And so you'll actually hear him say, yeah. And that was about 6 months into this therapy. So when we first started with them, he was 12 months. He was just starting to roll to his tummy. So 6 months in, they've already got him sitting on a shaker plate. So it's just really outstanding progress. Another picture, again, he's on an unsteady surface, working to reach toys to try and engage his core. And, the goal is to get him to reach with one hand, and he's still doing the two hands at this point. There's two more challenges just to cover quickly, and these have been discussed with the other SETBP1 families. A lot of them agree that their children still struggle with this today, but the first one is vestibular input, some sort of like sensory seeking activity. So I'll play the video, but you're going to see Corey spinning.
What are you doing, buddy?
More what? More what?
More spin?
So our therapists have encouraged us to do things like play airplane with him, or swing him in a blanket, or swing at the park to kind of offset some of that. The other thing is we're encountering some sleep challenges, which he's been a rock star sleeper since he was born. But since January, he's been waking up in the middle of the night from 1 to 3. It's that time every night. And he's awake, talking, laughing, rolling around, not crying at all, but it's like he's ready to get up for the day. And, we're waking up his sensory system. So I'm sure that that's tied to a little bit of that. There's so much gross motor and verbal progress that's happening right now that this is really a small inconvenience for us. We'll take it because he's, doing so well. This last little bit, I wanted to just highlight that therapy can be fun. We're trying to make this fun because this is our life, right? This is an example of some progress with verbal and gross motor skills happening at the same time. So you're seeing him pull to stand on an uneven surface and then adding some intentional wording.
Anya buns. Bum buns. Bum buns. Anya buns.
So with all that being said, and in wrapping this up, I just want all of you to know how much your efforts bring hope to our family. Hope that Corey is someday going to have a rewarding life and the ability to go to college and keep learning, find a career that he enjoys, and someday even having a family of his own, like Haley mentioned. He's got a long way to go, but with the continued focus on research of the SETBP1 gene, all of our hopes for Corey could become a reality. And so for those of you that are researchers on the call, each day that you step into that lab and connect even just the smallest dot, think about Corey and all of his SETBP1 friends and our families, because we are cheering you guys on.